Good morning and welcome to the verse of the day on this February 3rd of 2020. Today, the verse of the day can be found in Psalms chapter 59, verse 16. But I will sing of your strength in the morning. I will sing of your love, for you are my fortress, my refuge in times of trouble. Turn me down, Mo. Yeah. Obviously, this is singing or talking about God being, talking about God's love, His strength, that He is a fortress to be in times of trouble, and that of His love because He loves us all. He came and died on the cross. Probably not too much more to say about this verse because it's right out there, pretty self-explanatory, as I would say. So, on with the book reading. We are in chapter 12, alleviating pressure. In the previous chapter, I presented two different aspects of idolatry: stubbornness and covetousness. Now let's connect them because they go hand in hand, and uncovering how they work together will bring us a step closer to understanding what makes the believer susceptible to kryptonite. A difficult scenario. Consider again King Saul. He he was not content to abide in the will of God. His stubbornness made him susceptible to covetousness. His first recorded error didn't occur with the Amalekites. It happened in his early reign when facing the Philistines. The enemy of Israel had gathered a massive army of 3,000, which in those days were like tanks. So many foot soldiers, there appeared to be numerous as the grains of sand on the seashore. They were camped at Mechishama and were ready to attack. Saul's military was nothing in comparison. It was newly formed and still getting on its feet. We read, the men of Israel saw a right spot and they were in, and because they had were hard pressed by the enemy, they tried to hide in caves, thickets, rocks, holes, cisterns. Some of them crossed the Jordan River and escaped into the land of Gad and Gilead. Meaning, meanwhile, Saul stayed at Gilead, and the men were trembling with fear. First Samuel 13, verses 6 and 7. Can you imagine the pressure on Saul? You're the leader, commander, and king, and your infant army is facing a much more experienced, powerful, and vast army. Would they still have had an army? That's confusing in some ways because Israel's been around for a while. You would have thought they would have still had an army of some sort, or fighting men, or whatever. But it is that's what it does. And more experienced, vast military. Saul's worst nightmare is unfolding right before him. The men of his military are starting to go AWOL. However, possible relief is on site. A senior prophet, Samuel, who is scheduled to come come that day and offer sacrifice to the Lord would renew the men's confidence in Saul's leadership and give them courage to face the battle. However, there's a problem. Saul waited for their 7 days for Samuel, as Samuel had instructed him earlier, but Saul didn't come. Samuel didn't come. Saul realized that his troops were rapidly slipping away to so he demanded, "Bring me the burnt offering and peace offering." And Saul sacrificed the burnt offering himself. 1 Samuel 13 verses 8 through 9. There's no secret to it was no secret to anyone. Saul wasn't authorized by God to make an offering. The action was reserved for priests. Samuel was both prophet and priest. But in fairness to Saul, in a pressure situation like this, he and his men might have thought desperate times call for desperate measures. Yet Saul was about to out straighten out any confusion over the matter. Just as Saul was finishing with the burnt offering, Samuel appeared. Saul went out to meet and welcomed him, but Samuel said, "What is this you have done?" Saul replied, "I saw my men scattering from me, and you didn't arrive when you said you would, and the Philistines are at Michmash, ready for battle." So I said to the Philistines, "Are you ready to march against us at Gilgal?" I haven't even asked had I haven't even asked for the Lord's help. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering myself before you came. "How foolish!" Samuel exclaimed. "You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God gave you. You have, had you kept it, the Lord would have established your kingdom for over Israel forever. But now your kingdom must end, for the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart." 1 Samuel chapter 13 verses 10 through 14. This is what prophets do: clear out any confusion by bringing us back to where the Lord commands. People can easily forget what God declares during difficult times. Saul's actions of insecurity and discontentment can communicate it to the men of Israel that difficult times give us the right to choose whether it's best to obey God or not. This is this simply is not true. It is always important to obey God, no matter what the times. Saul's insecurity were simply a manifestation of his lack of contentment. He wanted everything around him to be under his control, and circumstances were far from that. He hated the pressure he was under, and he wanted to it all alleviated. His discontentment drove him to covet the peace he desired. Here is the truth we all must come to grips with. In serving God, we will often encounter adversity, hardship, and tribulation. Jesus guarantees it. It in the world you will have tribulation. John chapter 16, verse 33, New King James Version. Adver- Adversaries locates the strength of our faith. Adversity locates the strength of our faith. It will find our faith flagging. It will, if we are falling short on the faith meter, that that's the time to cry out to God, to seek His Word, to wait upon His Holy Spirit. If we do these things, we will come out of the trial with greater strength of faith than before. Our faith is a precious commodity, more precious than any resource available on earth. Think of it like this: if someone offered you a fail-safe business plan and a capital to invest it in it, how would you respond? How would you complain? complain? Would you complain and say, "This is too hard" or "too much work," or would you jump right into the opportunity and hold firm course on the fail-safe plan? We absolutely would get started and expect a great return. I might think it's could do too good to be true, and I don't want to check it out first, probably before I commit it to anything. Bit of a cynic sometimes, because a lot of times people are promising the world and lacking in what they give. Uh, so, but that says this is no different than when you face every. But God's different. He can't give the world. Um, this is no different than what you face every time you encounter adversity that is bigger than you. And trust me, God it will see to it that you get these opportunities, not because He wants to frustrate you, but so that you can receive the reward of greater faith. I'm just seeing whether I want to, whether I want to. Okay, we'll go to another section. Another difficult scenario. Consider David, who was the opposite of Saul. He faced an even more daunting challenge. He and his last 600 friends on earth have been all rejected. It has not been a good day, but it is about to get much worse. They return to their homes in Ziklag, only to find out while they were gone the Amalekites have invaded and taken all the valuables, their wives, children, and resources. They burnt all that was left. Nothing remained. Can you imagine David's emotions? He's been hiding in the wilderness and desert uh, of Israel for over 12 years. He's not been able to see his family or child, family or childhood friends, attend any worship services, enjoy community affairs, or any national events. All this time, he's he's had to hide and sometimes escape the finest special ops soldiers of Israel who've been tracking and hunting him. Due to all this, it finally became so dangerous that he, his men, and their families had taken shelter in a foreign nation for 2 years. How long would this go on? Where was the reward of serving God? Several times David could have taken matters into his own hands and killed the leader in Israel God had put him under. This would have alleviated the pressure of his affliction. But he was faithful, persevered, and remained in a state of contentment for 14 years. Stop right there and think about it. Have you found yourself wanting to give up after 3 weeks of hardship? How about 3 months? Or how about 3 years? 3 years is a long time to go through constant adversity. However, it pales in comparison to what David had endured. Saul's time period was roughly a week, and he gave in. He chose to pursue the respect and greater status in the eyes of his men by disobeying God. He chose the behavior that would both alleviate as well as elevate himself. He didn't wait for the promotion that comes only from God. Returning to David's story, he and his men return from Ziklag to find all that is dear and valuable to them gone. Upon discovering this, David and his men weep until their strength is gone. David may think he's hit rock bottom, but there's more. An even greater hardship is about to arise. Now his men, the last 600 friends he has on the planet, are so angry they want to execute him. David was now in great danger because all the men were very bitter about losing their sons and daughters, and they began to talk of stoning him. 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6. In the crisis situation, Saul's men went AWOL. He felt alone in desperate need of affirmation, respect, and honor. He sought it out by compromising God's directive. In contrast, David's men weren't deserting, but they wanted to kill him. David's situation was far more difficult than Saul's. Saul's discontentment led to reduced pressure instead of trusting God by waiting for Samuel. David's response is quite different. But David found the strength in the Lord his God. Then he said to Almar the priest, "Bring me the ephod." So Albiar brought it. Then David asked the Lord, "Should I chase after the band of raiders? Will I catch them?" And the Lord told him, "Yes, go after them. You will surely recover everything that was taken from you." 1 Samuel chapter 30, verses 6 and 8. David didn't try to talk his way out of this one, nor did he come up with a presumptuous plan. He didn't say, "I've had it. What good is it? That's that's it. I've served God faithfully. I've given my best years. He's the one who put me under such a tyrant boss. He's the real reason I'm going to a hellish life." David never blamed God, nor did he covet the palace. In his hardship, David could have taken his revenge by killing Saul and promoting himself to the throne God had promised him. No, he waited on God, and Saul did. David remained in his pattern of contentment and chose to ask God first. God's deliverance or provision had always come, but not before opportunity presents itself to disobey his word, like the desert temptation where Satan gave Jesus the chance to get out of his turmoil before the angels came and ministered to him. It always happens this way. Staying in place of contentment keeps us from seeking our own provision or promotion. And that's where we will end for today. We'll finish this off tomorrow. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, all that, and be sure to check out my book, The Canadian Shield, on Indiegogo. Comic book, Christian superhero. You will enjoy it. Um, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It's the first in many. So bye for now. God bless. Love you all. Have a great and wonderful day.